Travis had carefully hidden his diary behind the glittering Super Bowl trophies like a secret treasure he'd never told anyone about. And when I opened the first page, my breath caught in my throat because his handwriting was rough and strong, yet contained a tenderness the world had never seen before. He wrote about the first day he tried to give me that friendship bracelet. He called himself a giant fool, standing amidst the frenzied crowd at Arrowhead with his heart beating faster than when facing the opposing team's defense. He wrote that when he saw me radiant on stage under the glittering lights, he saw not just a superstar, but a soul burning with passion for music, and he promised at himself that if he had the slightest chance, he would be the one to protect that flame from the icy winds of life. I turned to the next page and tears began to pour the blue ink as he recounted the first time I came to watch him play. He was so nervous he couldn't sleep. He wrote about how he felt seeing me in his team's red jacket. He said that the red had never looked so beautiful until it was draped over my shoulders. And while the whole world was scrutinizing our every move, in this diary, he only worried about whether I felt comfortable, whether I was shocked by the noise of this rough world of sports. He wrote that I was a poem lost amidst the tactics of football and that he would learn to become a poet to understand my world. He recounted the nights we sat by the fireplace and I hummed a new tune. He wrote that he didn't fully understand the chords or rhythms, but he understood the pain in my eyes when I wrote about the past. And he wanted to use his big hands to cover those scars. He called me the only moon in the sky full of the deceitful stars of Hollywood. And he swore that he would never let me walk alone on the cold red carpets again. I read the pages where he wrote about his family. He talked about how his mother Donna and father Ed loved me, and how proud he felt seeing me laughing with his brother Jason. He wrote that the moment he knew he wanted to marry me wasn't at some glorious peak, but on an ordinary morning when I woke up with messy hair and no makeup. And he realized that genuine beauty was what he wanted to see every day for the rest of his life. I skimmed through the lines where he wrote about his own fears. He admitted that he was afraid he wasn't sophisticated enough to be with a talented woman like me. He feared that one day I would realize he was just a simple athlete. But then he reassured himself that his love was real and that he would learn every day to be worthy of me. Each line felt like a knife piercing my heart because all this time I thought I was the most sensitive person in this relationship. But it turned out my Travis had such a profound and compassionate soul. He wrote about the times he watched me sleep and wondered what blessing God had bestowed upon him to have me in his life. He spoke of the songs I wrote for him. He felt both proud and small before the power of my words. He wrote, or you don't need to write about the men who abandoned you anymore because I'm here to write a different ending for you. And I realized that these diary entries were the most wonderful song I had ever read. It had no musical accompaniment, it had no elaborate dance, but it had the beat of an absolutely loyal heart. I kept reading and reading until my fingers went numb from holding the notebook for so long. I read about his plans for the future, about the children he hoped would have eyes like mine and strength like his, about the house we would build together and the lands we would explore together. He wrote, "Every Super Bowl victory is meaningless without her there to celebrate with me because she is the best victory of my life." And at that moment, I heard his car pull into the garage. My heart raced. I quickly closed the notebook and put it back in its place, wiped away the tears of happiness that were welling up. I knew that from this moment on, I would never look at him the same way again. My giant with the number 87 on the field turned out to be the one who kept the sweetest secrets of love in his heart. And when the door opened and he walked in with a radiant smile, I would rush into his arms and whisper that I loved him as much as he had written, and even more. Because we are an unending symphony of words and dreams woven from sincerity and unwavering devotion that nothing can break. And then my hands turned to pages steeped in the scent of a London summer as he wrote about that evening at Wembley, the night he stepped onto the stage in his tuxed Owen Hall hat. He wrote that his legs trembled more than the first time he stepped onto the NFL practice court because he was afraid he would ruin my sacred moment. He wrote, "I stood behind the stage watching her sparkle like a goddess, and I knew I was just the luckiest assistant in the world. I tried to keep a straight face, but inside I was a storm of pride. I wanted to shout to the world that this extraordinary woman was my wife." And I saw him recount the feeling of holding me in his arms in front of tens of thousands of spectators. He said that at that moment I was as light as a flower, but the pressure of protecting me was as heavy as 1,000 pounds. He wrote about the secret smiles we exchanged under the stage lights that only the two of us understood, and then the diary turned to the days in the Bahamas where the sea was as blue as my eyes. He wrote about afternoons we lay on the sand without cameras, without fans, just the sound of waves and the breaths of two souls mingling. He confessed that he secretly watched me while I slept in the sun, and he wrote a new vow in the sand, but the waves erased it, so he had to write it here to make it eternal. He wrote, "She deserves all the private islands in the world to be herself, to not have to worry about prying lenses. I will be the strongest wall surrounding her." And I read the passages he wrote about my old songs. He admitted that he spent hours listening to the 10-minute version of All Too Well again. He wrote that he cried when he heard the part about the woolen scarf because he couldn't understand why someone could treat such a precious heart like mine so badly. He wrote, "Oh, Travis, how can you be so sweet that you melt my heart like this?" And then he wrote about his own career. He confided about the pain after each game, about the injuries he always hid from me. He wrote, "My knees ache in the cold. Visions are starting to leave marks. But just coming home and seeing Taylor waiting at the door makes all the pain disappear. She is the most effective painkiller I've ever had. I know the day I have to leave the field is not far away, and I'm afraid I'll become useless, but then I see her looking at me, and I know that even though I'm no longer number 87 on the field, I will still be the only hero in her heart." He wrote about his post-retirement plans, not about being a commentator or acting in movies, but about planting a flower garden with me in Rhode Island. He wrote about learning to cook the dishes I liked so I wouldn't have to struggle after long tours. He wrote about the children he imagined, a daughter with my blonde hair and strong personality, and a son with his radiant smile. He wrote, "We'll teach them how to throw a ball, and Taylor will teach them how to write their dreams. We'll be the happiest team on the planet." And I found myself sobbing when I read the part where he talked about his fear of losing me. He wrote about nightmares of me disappearing into the crowd and him not being able to find my hand. He wrote, "Wake up drenched in sweat and have to touch her to make sure she's still there. My heart beats only for her. If I lose her, I'm just an empty shell." And I realized that I'd written too much about searching for love all this time, but it turns out love isn't something to search for, but something to build brick by brick, just like he wrote in this notebook. He wrote about the time she got upset over trivial things. He didn't scold her, but instead wrote, "She's so adorable, even when she frowns. Just want to kiss that furrowed brow until she smiles again. I'll always be the one to apologize first because winning or losing with the one I love doesn't matter." And he recounted the time he secretly went to buy craft supplies to make bracelets to give to her fans. He wrote that he wanted to experience a little bit of her world to understand why she loved them so much. And he realized that her love for her audience was just like her passionate and selfless love for life. He wrote about the evening she sat alone playing the piano. He stood outside the door listening and didn't dare go in for fear of disturbing that artistic space. He wrote, "Her music is the breath of this house. When she's here, everything seems silent. Just wish time would pass quickly so I could hear that sound again." And I felt like I was drifting in an endless ocean of sincerity. You wrote about the 1-year anniversary of our meeting. You blamed yourself for not preparing a big enough gift, but then you wrote, in Europe, where he secretly flew thousands of miles just to see her standing under the lights of Paris, the city of lights, he wrote, "I sat in the audience and heard the songs from her new album for the first time. It hurt to realize how much she had been through before meeting me. But when she sang So High School and looked at me, I felt like the happiest young man on the planet. I wanted to stand up and dance like a child because I knew I was the reason she smiled again." He wrote about the mornings in Haley when we strolled along Lake Como. He admitted that he pretended not to see the cameras far away just so she could have a moment of true peace. He wrote, "Everyone talks about the luxury of this trip, but for me, the greatest luxury was holding Taylor's hand under the ancient trees, listening to her tell me about her childhood dreams that she had never told anyone. I swore to the gods of this land that I would never let anything tarnish her pure soul." I read on and saw his lines about my 3 cats. He recounted how he had to negotiate with Meredith to be allowed to sit next to me on the sofa. He wrote, "Meredith looked at me as if I were an intruder, but I persevered because I knew they were her family. I learned how to feed them and play with them the way she did. And the moment Olivia curled up in my lap was when I knew I had truly been accepted into this world." Oh, Travis, even those little details he cherished so much. He wrote about the times he sat watching her practice for the Eras Tour until he knew every dance step by heart. He wrote, "She works harder than any professional player I've ever seen. She's a true warrior hidden behind her delicate exterior. Every time I see her sweating on the practice court, I admire her discipline and passion even more. I tell myself I have to work twice as hard this season to be worthy of standing beside a living legend." He also wrote about the evenings we cooked together in the Kansas kitchen. He confessed he was a terrible cook, but he loved watching her busy and her colorful aprons. He wrote, "The taste of Taylor's baked goods is the taste of home. I don't need lavish parties at 5-star restaurants. I just need to sit opposite her. Hear her laughter echoing in the small kitchen. That's when I feel most at peace after the hustle and bustle on the field." I turned to the next page and saw that he wrote about our friendship with Patrick and his wife. He recounted times when he and Patrick sat drinking beer and talked only about how lucky they were to have such wonderful women in their lives. He wrote,